This is Inside Singapore Sports Business. I'm your host Adele, and this show is brought to you in collaboration with Sports Singapore and the Toad Board. Today's ISSB episode is taking place right here at the prestigious VIP boxes of our national stadium at the Singapore SportsHub. We will be having a chat about international sports events and sports tourism coming back here to sunny Singapore. This is exciting, so let's get going. We have so much to get through today, so it's my pleasure to introduce our two guests. We have Ms. Ong Ling Lee, Director of Sports and Wellness at the Singapore Tourism Board, as well as Mr. Damian Bush, the Managing Director of Singapore SportsHub. Thank you both for joining us today. So before we start, maybe we'll give the audiences a little background information on the both of you. Maybe Damian, would you like to tell us a bit of your background, what you like, what you don't like, what I shouldn't ask you?
Sure, thanks Adele. So I've been at the SportsHub since 2014, and prior to that I was working in London, predominantly on the 2012 Olympics. So within the sport and entertainment industry, probably racking up 25 plus years now. Lots of highs, a few lows, lows being all of the hours and all of the time we have to put into it, and obviously the lows seeing the major events that take place. Not always easy, working on some of the events that we have and what I've done in the past, and even times where I've had foreign dignitaries and people stuck in the wrong place. And I can even remember Boris Johnson, who was then Mayor of London at the time before he's Prime Minister, and we had him on the wrong side of a road race in London, working out how to try and get him across the road as the cyclists were going at 30-40 miles an hour. So yeah, it's certainly great fun. It's great to be here.
Wow, now I feel like we would love to see a meme of that. But thank you. Wow, so many questions for you, so little time. What about you, Ling Lee?
Thanks, Adele. So my name is Ling Lee. I'm the Director of Sports and Wellness in STB. And in my day job, I would lead the board's effort of pursuit for sports tourism, and that will include securing, developing, and ensuring that the world-class sporting events in Singapore are being executed smoothly. So my day-to-day work will include working with various government agencies as well as tourism-related businesses like Damian to pursue sports tourism, and we also support the creating and the innovation of consumer sports experiences so as to increase the appeal of Singapore as a leisure attraction. Now, all this fun and exciting work aside, I'm also leading the board's effort in developing wellness, and our aspiration is to allow Singapore to be a sporting and wellness destination that would have world-class sports events as well as quality sports and wellness experiences that can rejuvenate and excite both locals and visitors.
So here's a question that's not in the question list. How often do you two have to speak on a weekly basis? Every single day?
Well, it's on my speed dial.
There we go. Yeah, we talk quite a bit because there's always prospective events, there's events that are taking place. So lots of discussion, and most of the time it revolves around funding and support, which is how the industry works.
There you go.
For us to get to talk to the different sporting property owners around the world in order to anchor them in Singapore.
Right. Okay, now I feel the chemistry going on, and I feel a little bit outnumbered, but fun. I'm very happy that we have both of you here together with us today. We have so many questions, and because ISSB is a sports business show, we're going to start with some numbers. Can you tell us a little bit about how big the sports event industry is in Singapore? Who would like to?
Well, let me talk a bit about the SportsHub to start with. So, and we go back to pre-pandemic times. Us here in our role, we obviously look after all the commercial aspects, the venues, the events, the marketing. So there's a lot of coordination that takes place with our team, and kind of the pinnacle for the sporting culture, if you like, is here where we are today at the Singapore SportsHub. Now, when we go back to 2019, which was a bumpy year for us, we've probably got 400 plus event days, of which 270 plus of those are actual sporting days as well. And it's not just the local national sporting associations and their events that take place, but for us we capture the international eye as well, because over the years we've seen a real growth in the types of events we've attracted here. So events such as the WTA finals, which was the tennis finals for the women's tournament, that took place over 5 years from 2014 to 2018. That was huge for us. But we pick up in events such as swimming, Silat, fencing, all international events that have been here, along with the International Champions Cup. The football, the mega teams, the Manchester Uniteds, the Tottenhams, of course the biggest of them all, which is Chelsea. So they've all taken their place here as well. And I think when you look at it over the years, one of the sort of highlights for us was the Southeast Asian Games, the 28th SEA Games, and we could see not just the whole country mobilised, but the whole of the sports hub as well. So there is a huge increase. There's a bit of a ground that we want to make up now, but there's more investment and more planning going into it. But as I say, most of the sporting activity is taking place here where we are today at the Singapore Sports Hub.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm so glad that we could do it against this gorgeous backdrop. What about from a tourism perspective?
Well, we have a very exciting and very varied sporting events calendar throughout the year. So let me start with the world-class events. We've got the Formula One Singapore Grand Prix, HSBC Women's World Championship that was just concluded this month. And we also have the upcoming HSBC Singapore Rugby Sevens that's going to be held. And amongst all the other events that are world-class, we also have got participatory events like the Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon, and we also have regional soccer leagues, floorball leagues, and like what David mentioned, swimming, tennis, and etc. So it does come together very nicely and scattered and all around the year calendar and attract a lot of tourists. For F1 alone, in 2019 pre-COVID, we had the second highest attendance since the race started, with about 268,000 attendees, out of which 40% were foreign visitors.
Wow. Yes, I do remember as these events were flowing into Singapore, there's a lot of excitement, not just locally with Singaporeans or people based in Singapore. I think I would hear of hotels getting filled up and flights and tickets being snapped up. Yeah, so can't wait to see that going back to those days. What about, can you maybe tell us a little bit about some of the numbers, if you have any, about perhaps the broadcast or the participation or the...
Yeah, I mean, when we look at something like the AFF Suzuki Cup, which we've held here, we can talk about the successes of holding it during the pandemic, pre-pandemic as well. But the numbers that we reach across the region are phenomenal. So all of the media impressions and broadcast views, that can hit 500 million. There is more people with interest in the AFF Suzuki Cup in football than they are in the World Cup, because we don't have so many Southeast Asian teams participating in the World Cup. So the viewership numbers just for that alone are mind-blowing. So just along with the attendances, the imprints and the reach that we get outside of Singapore is so important for us, because it creates a phenomenal interest. The HSBC Rugby Sevens, which we've held here and we'll be holding again in April of 22, generally 350 million broadcast viewers that will follow that event. It's got a huge potential for us and a massive impact across the world. So it's a global events that we're holding that are really important for us.
If I may add, for F1 alone, we have garnered about 930 million TV viewers around the world from 2008 to 2019. And then even for the HSBC Women's World Championship, 2021, which was a COVID pandemic year, we managed to secure more than $300 million worth of international media viewership. And even for one championship, which has been steadfastly rolling out events after events during the pandemic, every one of the events can reach to about 150 countries and about $23 million in terms of international media value. It just brings me so much pride to actually, because I have witnessed it myself, right, growing up here in Singapore, which would actually lead me to my next question. How has the sports event scene in Singapore grown in the last 20 years? It wasn't always like that.
in Singapore, and I guess you guys have seen this growth. So if you had to compare and contrast, how has it grown? How was it a smooth transition, or because now it sounds so easy, right? F1 in Singapore all the time.
Well, it was, I think, a lot of hard work on the different government agencies, STB, SportsHub, MCCY, MTI, and of course with good partners like SportsHub, that we managed to attract and secure a good number of events at the global leading, quality level, from rugby to golf, tennis, soccer. I mean, this place here, you've seen Manchester United, you've seen Chelsea, you've seen Inter Milan, you've seen Juventus, and you've seen the likes of Simona Halep, Serena Williams in our stadium. And I think we were really quite fortunate, and I think, like what you said, perhaps a little sport for choice in terms of the kind of sporting action that we can actually get to view and the kind of sporting personalities that we get to watch and narrate. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, other than just spectating the different sporting events, the thing about participatory sports events has also grown from strength to strength. Like Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon has reached about 50,000 participants over the past few years before the pandemic hit. And even our regional soccer leagues, even though they are for amateur players, but they have grown from 10 teams when they started in 2009 to 110 teams when it was in 2019. So there's a lot of recognition that people can come to Singapore, people who live in Singapore can enjoy sports as a spectator and also enjoy sports as a participant. And if I may add, even esports, 2021 it was a tough year for everybody, but we got the Mobile Legend, Big Bang, M2's finals in Singapore, Dota 2, we've got Free Fire World Series, all the finals were in Singapore. So I think while we are trying to get over the hump that COVID-19 has thrown us, we are growing from strength to strength, and we would be able to do better as we recover.
And I don't think people realise actually just how hard it is to get a lot of these events. We have to come together as a country, as partners, we have to bid for this. We don't just get awarded these events. We have to go to different international federations as a partnership. We have to travel the globe to find the right events. And it is a lot of hard work, and sometimes it can take more than a year or 2 years for our bids to come together as Singapore. And we're up against a lot of other countries, not just in this region, but globally. And we have to prove to them why they should anchor their events with us. So, that's the sort of thing that people don't really read about, hear in the press or see the hard work that happens, and it doesn't always come off. But it's, it's something that we're always looking at, different options.
Yeah, I'm sure the bidding is a really tough process, but we have successfully been able to bring. So can you tell us a little bit more maybe about this bidding process as well?
Well,
how hard is it?
It's not an uncommon process, but if you're looking at anything from tennis events to swimming events to football events, a lot of countries will want to put their hand up because they want not just the exposure, but obviously the foreign tourism, which is where the tourism board specialise. It's what they're looking at. So there's a lot of competition out there. You'll meet with an international federation, you'll meet with a different promoter, you'll explain to them why they should come to Singapore. And it isn't just about what's out here in the stadium, it's about what the country offers as a whole and how we package it, and how we can support their athletes, we can support their teams, we can support their federation, and then they will want to know how they can get growth as well. So for instance, the HSBC, Rugby Sevens, over the years, we've gone together with the Rugby Union, with SportsHub, with the Tourism Board, with other government agencies, with the SportsHub, and we've said to them why we should be on the circuit, how important it is for Singapore, Southeast Asia, Asia as a whole, the growth of rugby at all different ages and levels, and what we can bring to the table. And that's really important. And people don't see that, and we don't expect them to. They'll see a ticket for sale and come along and have a great day. But there can be years of work that goes into actually turning that around and producing something that's taking place behind me in the National Stadium.
Yeah, and we have had previous guests who have often credited the infrastructure as well as the support of the Singapore Tourism Board to make the process of bringing these huge events to Singapore and being able to pull it off so smoothly. So for me to finally then get to speaking to the two of you, whom a lot of our other guests have referenced, feels like a really awesome wrap up. So then another question is, how do you feel like all of these major events, how has this helped put Singapore on the world map in terms of sporting events? Would you say, at what point do you remember there being a switch like, oh, Singapore is a force to be reckoned with in terms of pulling off huge global sporting events?
I think if you were to ask me, of course I would say that F1 was the starting point, in that we were able to pull a huge race, no less in the heart of the city, where we were able to close roads, and I think more excitedly as well as the ability to pull off the on-track activations. For example, the concerts, are world renowned, and how we've also, as a tourism board, put together a whole slew of festivalization as well as activations outside the circuit to allow people to enjoy more of our lifestyle options. And of course, I think over the years with the WTA finals, that we get to see a lot of world-class tennis action, and our ability, again, not to just bring the sporting action, but also to bring in the lifestyle elements, and to bring in a lot of the meet and greets with the sporting personalities, and of course to also push out in terms of either digital media, broadcast media, or traditional media, and have them speak volumes. Our favorite trade out state of the world is to make them eat durians or chicken rice and to extol the virtues of the attractiveness of food, our wonderful infrastructure, and just enjoying our city while they're also taking part as an athlete in Singapore.
What about?
Yeah, look, it's kind of the memories, and seeing the Brazilian national team play here. I think they've played 3 games here now. Having Japan come over and play and bring 10,000 foreign supporters with them into the stadium, seeing the Suzuki Cup with all the international visitors we get, and it's that media, it is that print, because Harry Kane scored a goal for Tottenham from the halfway line in front of 53,000 fans, and people are phoning me up going, did you see that goal? And it's still being played today, and that does put us on the world map, and that's really important. And sporting events, more than anything, generally gets you that type of coverage because there's such fun and such interest behind it. Sport is important in most people's lives. Everyone's got a team, everyone's got a sports person they follow. It gets so much coverage, whether it's print, media, social media, whatever it is. And for it to take place here and then see that globally around the world, that really helps us.
So, I blame my producer for this. Every single episode of ISSB, because it's a business show, they ask for stats and numbers, and we're not always able to do that. But today, since we have our Singapore Tourism Board and SportsHub with us, we're going to challenge Ling Lee and Damian. Okay, let's give me some numbers about the participation, broadcast, attendance, maybe even infrastructure of some of these huge sports events that we've seen here in Singapore. Who goes first?
I'll start. So if we go back to 2019, which is a bumper year for us, we'll have over 400 plus event days and about 270 sporting days. Footfall throughout the year, we can get up to 15 million people coming through the Sports Hub as a whole, obviously with the retail mall as well, that helps it. And broadcast numbers can vary hugely depending on what we're doing. So if it's something like the AFF Suzuki Cup, then we're into 500 million impressions there, broadcast-wise, and obviously with the help of social media. Then we move into the HSBC Rugby Sevens. Broadcast figures are usually around 350, 360 million. So yeah, those numbers are kind of some of the sort of spaces and places where we hit across the year, just as a couple of very small examples.
Wow, making Singapore proud numbers. And from STB's perspective?
I will continue with 2019 as well because it was a great year for us. On F1, we achieved the second highest attendance since the race started at 268,000 spectators. And over the course of the 12 years from 2008 to 2019, we've achieved about 550 unique foreign visitors to attend F1, out of which 40% of the attendance and of the racegoers are foreign visitors. We've also achieved about 930 million viewers worldwide in terms of global broadcast. And overall, the last few terms of F1, we've achieved $1.5 billion to incremental tourism receipts. Yes. And even our other events, I'll still stick to 2019. We have one of our biggest international Champions Cup, the Manchester United versus Inter Milan game. We had about 53 to 54,000 attendees in the stadium right here. And even our most recent golf championship, HSBC Women's World Championship that was held in 2021, where the record-breaking year, even though it was a pandemic, $372 million worth of international media value. Our one event has been being held very consistently over the pandemic period. Every event can reach about 150 countries and reach about 23 million viewers.
Well, all right, we will be getting to that next, because that is true. The one championship event was consistent throughout the pandemic. Maybe let's have a chat about that now. Then the question that we also have to always address when it comes to the sports business in Singapore. So, are you able to compare the situation post-COVID with what we saw before 2020?
Well, the sports events industry practically came to a standstill on the most of 2020 because there were no gatherings allowed, no events allowed.
No bubble tea.
And that took a while for the events to go back on. On STB ends, we worked very hard with the different ministries as well as event organizers. One, for example, to try to pilot events to be done in a very, very safe manner. So in October 2020, they managed to start with a closed-door pilot whereby only the foreign professional athletes, the foreign crew, that was held in Singapore in the stadium with no spectators. So that started in October 2020. And because we could implement a lot of rigorous protocols, which includes controlled itinerary, whereby the foreign arrivals could only go from the airport to the hotel to the medical facilities and then to the event venue and back, nowhere else. And even our local crew and local staff had to be also inside this tightly controlled bubble. And we tested different ways of managing the operations, including the indoor stadium, which Damian will be familiar with, ensuring that even the production workers could be zoned up, and then they could also set up and doing all the prep in a very, very safe and calibrated manner. So that took us a number of pilots in order for us to start having a live audience in this indoor stadium, and that was in December 2020. And it was also the first time that we executed a pre-event testing, whereby that was, I think, about the first time anybody used the antigen rapid tests. And that was our first pilot with live audience since COVID started.
I kind of remember that. I remember seeing the posters. Maybe was it already in October? The advertisements posters started coming up, and I was on the streets, and I was like, haven't seen one of these in a while. Is there really a live event coming? And that was the first sign of, I guess, life coming back in 2020.
I could still remember on that night, I think I met you because we were walking around making sure that things were all right. The excitement in the air was palpable and even the security personnel, your ushers, they were all very excited because they've not seen human beings, so many of them, in the stadium, and actually seeing a fight and event happening. And that, I think, was a very strong boost to their morale and confidence, because to be honest, they were all losing their jobs and losing sight of what they could do. So when the first event came back, it injected a lot of confidence, and we made sure that everything was done safely and the protocols were adhered to, so that we could keep pushing out events as we open up slowly.
Yeah, kudos to you guys, because I remember also feeling that spark of excitement or inspiration to actually just even go by. I think I was in town, not sure why. But yeah, back October 2020, now that we're in 22, thinking back to over a year ago, remembering seeing that poster. But why the one championship? Why was there a reason why that particular event was chosen to be our first?
if I may use the word serendipitous, because they wanted to get the events out. They are ready, and they were also willing to work with us at short notice in terms of having really tight protocols, because it's honestly no fun having, especially for the foreign crew, foreign athletes, they have to go through PCR tests almost every day, and that once they enter the tight bubble, they can't leave, and they have to adhere to very strict protocols, timing, and the way they set up. I was told they used to take 48 hours to bump in, bump out, but because of the protocols, they have to take like 72 or even longer than that to actually. So they were willing to try, and they were very cooperative, and they also had very high operational capabilities that we were very confident about that they were able to implement without the last minute.
It sounds like such a huge task, and then it was pulled off like beautifully. So besides all these challenges that you mentioned, were there any maybe anecdotes you remember during that process where you felt like, wow, we can actually, we're pulling it off, we can do more of these, regardless of how long this pandemic?
I would just say that for that period of time, my weekends were all too exciting. Because of the tight testing protocol, we did catch a number of C+ cases. They were tested negative as they board the plane, but when they arrived in Singapore, they turned positive. So we had to activate the different MOH protocols, making sure that COVID positive personnel is being sent to the hospital, the close contacts are being put under isolation, because in those days, if you remember, there wasn't any protocol 1, 2, or 3. It was hospital or isolation facility. So, but we were, while it was challenging and very exciting, but we knew that the protocols work. And from there, we actually learned a lot, and I think that was when we moved on to ATP 250. That happened in February of 2021, where a lot of the lessons that we learned from the One Championship was actually applied there. And then moving forward from there, we had the HSBC Women's World Championship that was held in April of 2021. And that also paved the way for a number of events that we had in 2021. And then we're in 2022 now, none the wiser.
Yes, a lot of, I think a lot of, some of previous guests had also referenced the One Championship as the event that everybody learned from and then were able to implement.
They're the trailblazers, so they did incredibly well. And we got to the stage where obviously public were turning up, and just seeing people turning up and coming through the doors, something that we did week in, week out with any thought at all for many years, was a really nice moment, because there was a buzz, there was a sense of excitement. It felt like we were back, and then the numbers increased slightly, and it just made a real difference. So kudos to the One guys for sticking with it and with their product, which they, very much anchored around Singapore, and a lot of homegrown talent they have as well that participate, and we're pushing that out globally. So it was really important that kept going.
At the SportsHub, did you feel the audiences, or just from the grassroots level, do you feel the community's hunger and thirst for
massively, and the staff. And when we went back out to the staff to say, hey, how are you feeling about coming back? We had a 94% positive return, which was, we want to get back to work. But it wasn't just about coming back to work, it was about coming back to the SportsHub and coming back to events. And that's been really important for us as well. And you can just see the smiles on their faces.
How did you guys survive, or how was the revenue during the last 2 years?
Oh, look, it was tough. And you look globally and you see what happened across the world. Sports stopped, or some sports took place globally behind closed door. So, you've got to pivot. But don't forget, we've got daily business that happens here. So in amongst, the Aquatic Centre, the OCBC Arena, the Water Sports Centre, there are multiple sports activities. And once we were out of the lockdown, actually those venues with reduced numbers were really busy. And if we take something like our badminton courts, and your producer will love this, we were probably at 96, 97% capacity on public bookings. And the basketball courts and the table tennis was all really busy. So you could tell that people were desperate to get out, take part in activity, take part in sport. And of course, events is the next tranche of where we are, because we're seeing some encouraging signs there as well now. So even there, during those deepest moments of the pandemic, people were still here participating, and we certainly did a lot of hybrid activity. We used the sort of digital media to support us on workouts and so on. But then again, under safe management measures, there were workouts taking place here on a weekly basis, being done very safely, sold out. And as much as they were normally free, we had to make sure people just paid a couple of dollars because we didn't want anyone to lose out. And they were happy to pay the couple of dollars, and that assured their space and their spot. Every session was full. It was brilliant. So, we were actually still very busy. We still had people at the SportsHub. We still had limited footfall, but to the capacity that we could hold.
Right. So how do you see, this new normal that we've all gotten accustomed to? How?
Well, it's changing all the time. So what is normal? What is new normal? The figures and the numbers are going up.
Our adaptability is
there.
The
We
new
go.
normal.
There we go. We saw in December of 21, we saw Suzuki Cup. We saw crowds of 10,000. So we've got to that figure. That's a great number to start with. We want to see more. We want to keep improving, and we can see that things are moving in the right direction.
What do you think, Ling Lee, with now that we have all gone through so many rounds of these implementing different measures at these sports events? How do you think we are going to be dealing with this new normal 2022 and beyond?
I think that we probably didn't realize that we were this adaptable and we could be this creative. And over the past couple of years, I've seen the EOs telling me no can do, but now they're like, it's possible. And they've also found new ways to engage their participants and their athletes that it can be done through digital means if, let's say, they can't do it face-to-face. And even for the HSBC Women's World Championship, we actually managed to have guests on the greens this year, unlike last year. And I would like to say with cautious optimism that things would only get better because we've proven to be adaptable, and whichever conditions or curveballs, not that I enjoy them, we would be able to work around it.
So apart from the wins from Singapore Tourism Board and the SportsHub, how badly hit would you say Singapore tourism was when COVID happened?
There was no tourism. Jokes aside, it's very, very badly hit. But we're seeing some light, and I think most importantly is the gradual and calibrated reopening of the borders so that people can come in and leave, and then as the world opens up, probably at a different place, in the different markets, that then we can slowly bring the tourists back. But as importantly as well is for our tourism industry to get back to where we were, because to be honest, after 2 years whereby they had to run a reduced staff strength because there was just no tourists, it's going to be a little rusty, and it's going to take some time and effort to bring in the right resourcing, the right manpower, and the capabilities to hey, we used to do this, so let's get back to it.
If you each had to sum up the last 2 years after COVID hit us, if you had to sum up your experience at work, how would you sum it up to be? Apart from adaptable, and then what I'm hearing is that SportsHub and the Singapore Tourism Board has been really adaptable, has been really daring to take the risk and achieve some really huge wins. Are there anything else that you would like to share about your experience in the last 2 years?
There's lots of things that took place. I never thought we'd be hosting 3,000 migrant workers in the National Stadium, the pinnacle of sport in Singapore. And we had these guests living here for a few months, and we were serving 6,000 meals a day. And the team was so good and so adaptable. Major events is what we do. So we worked with our government partners and with SportsHub. Before we knew it, we were a huge hotel.
That's a story for a long time.
That's probably maybe a story for another day. But it happened with very short notice. And first of all, we took over the OCBC Arena, and then there was areas of the aquatic centre, and then there was the national stadium and the running track, and then the promenade outside. And it just seemed normal in the end. 3,000 people here. We had some great sport and entertainment on the screens to keep people entertained. Lots of activities were taking place, safe activities. The donations and support that came from the community and different community groups for everybody that was staying here was incredible. And for my team and everybody involved, that was a very, very different period. But we were still hosting a major international event as far as we were concerned. What we were doing for the good of the nation was fantastic. So, you know, to sum up over that period, I'll always tell people about what happened and what we did at that time. And actually it's something to be incredibly proud of for all of our teams, what we achieved.
Well, then I feel like definitely we'll have to go down in our history. Like at some point we're going to look back at all these stories. How about yourself?
Well, if I were to draw a parallel, the F1 pit building for the past 2 years has been used as a quick testing facility. So, you know, it used to host corporate guests, the racing teams, and then now you have people queuing under the tentage to have their nose poked. And then in the recent months, it became a community treatment facility. So we always jokingly say that, wow, that's one facility with view of the Marina Bay. So I think COVID and the past 2 years have, you know, really thrown us a lot of strange curveballs, and I think nobody expected it. No one wants it to happen, but it did. And it's gonna sound like a cliche, but I think like what Damian mentioned, I think we all dug deep and realized that there's actually a lot in us, that we could still make things happen. And I'm also glad to say that while I was very busy the last 2 years fighting a very different sort of fire and making sure that the events can happen, this year I still feel very busy because I think event organisers and industry around the world saw how Singapore came up and was able to withstand the onslaught of the challenges that we face, and they are very interested to host and put a lot of events in Singapore. So I think in a nutshell, it was and still is a rough ride, but I think we would be able to come out better for it.
I think so. I think it sounds optimistic, and I'm really excited to chat with the both of you about the future of sports events in Singapore at our next episode. With that, we conclude the first part of sports tourism and mass spectator events coming back here to Singapore. We have so much more to chat with Ling Lee and Damian about, so make sure you join us again next time on ISSB for part 2.